Recent satellite imagery reveals troubling signs from North Korea: darkened cities, quiet ports, and whispers of unrest. While the nation has long been shrouded in secrecy, new intelligence suggests cracks may be forming in Kim Jong Un's carefully constructed regime. Economic struggles, food shortages, and growing access to outside information create conditions ripe for change. But is North Korea truly on the brink of collapse, or is this another adaptation moment for the isolated nation? Could these challenges strengthen Kim's resolve or pave the way for an unexpected leadership shift? As uncertainty grows, one pressing question emerges: how much longer can the regime maintain its control in the face of rising internal and external pressures? If you think Kim Jong Un will collapse soon, please comment number 1 below. The systemic breakdown in North Korea manifests across multiple critical sectors, revealing deep-rooted structural failures that challenge the regime's stability. Under the current rule of North Korean leader Kim Jong Un's these unprecedented challenges have begun to surface more prominently. The North Korean economy is exhibiting alarming signs of severe distress, with recent data painting a grim picture of its continued decline. Economic output has reportedly shrunk by an estimated 20% since 2017, signaling a prolonged and deepening economic contraction. This downturn has significantly impacted the daily lives of citizens, as household incomes are believed to have dropped by approximately 25% between 2017 and 2019, leaving many struggling to meet basic needs. Compounding these issues, the trade lifeline for North Korea's already fragile economy suffered catastrophic setbacks. Exports to China, the nation's primary trading partner, have plunged by a staggering 86% following the imposition of international sanctions aimed at curbing the regime's nuclear ambitions. The broader trade landscape is equally dire, with total foreign trade reportedly declining by 67% in recent years. These factors, combined with a 4.1% contraction in the economy during 2018 alone, illustrate the extent to which North Korea's financial and trade systems are crumbling under mounting pressure. This economic turmoil not only underscores the challenges facing the regime but also raises critical questions about its ability to sustain its current trajectory amid such profound financial strain. Food security has reached critical levels, presenting a severe challenge to regime stability. According to UN assessments, approximately 45% of the population was undernourished from 2020 to 2022. The agricultural sector faces multiple challenges, with annual grain production falling significantly short of meeting food needs. More than 72% of recent North Korean defectors reported never receiving government food rations, highlighting the systematic failure of the state's distribution system. The energy sector's deterioration represents perhaps the most visible sign of systemic breakdown. The country's power generation infrastructure faces multiple critical issues. North Korea's energy crisis has reached unprecedented levels, with even Pyongyang experiencing regular blackouts. Some of the poorest citizens receive state-provided electricity only once per year. The situation in rural areas is even more dire, with households typically receiving just 2 hours of electricity per day. The collapse extends beyond residential impact. Industrial facilities have begun shutting down, including one of the country's largest fertilizer plants. Power shortages have become so severe that they have paralyzed production at coal mines, creating a devastating feedback loop in energy generation. Transmission losses are reported at approximately 30% due to aging infrastructure, further straining the already limited power supply. These systemic failures raise serious questions about whether North Korea will collapse under the weight of these mounting challenges. The next North Korean leader may face an even more precarious situation, as these fundamental weaknesses continue to undermine the regime's ability to maintain basic services and control. The current North Korean leader's grip on information control shows unprecedented signs of weakening, despite intensified efforts to maintain censorship. Recent studies reveal that information barriers are crumbling as citizens find innovative ways to access outside media. A notable transformation in media consumption patterns is taking place within North Korea, challenging the regime's long-standing dominance over information and propaganda. Studies reveal that an overwhelming 85% of North Koreans who escaped the country between 2016 and 2020 had accessed foreign media before their departure. This shift highlights the growing penetration of external information into one of the world's most tightly controlled societies, marking a significant crack in the regime's ability to isolate its population from outside influences. How citizens consume this forbidden content is diverse and increasingly innovative, underscoring the resourcefulness of individuals seeking knowledge beyond state-sanctioned narratives. Reports suggest that 76% of the population has viewed foreign media via DVDs, a medium that, despite being relatively low-tech, remains a discreet and accessible option for many. Additionally, 62% of citizens have relied on USB drives as a means of acquiring and sharing content from abroad. These portable storage devices, often smuggled into the country, enable North Koreans to secretly access a broad range of foreign films, music, and news. Perhaps most strikingly, over 83% of recent defectors have employed sophisticated methods to consume foreign media, indicating an evolving and determined effort to break through the information blockade imposed by the government. This growing exposure to external perspectives is gradually eroding the regime's ability to control the narrative, fueling a subtle but profound cultural shift within North Korea. The implications of this change are far-reaching, raising questions about how long the regime can maintain its ideological grip in the face of a population increasingly aware of alternative realities. South Korean cultural penetration has become so significant that the current North Korean leader labeled K-pop a vicious cancer. The impact has been profound, with authorities now actively combating the adoption of South Korean fashion, speech patterns, and cultural behaviors. Despite severe punishments, including potential execution for distributing South Korean content, cultural influence continues to grow through smuggled dramas and music. A nascent community of anti-censorship hackers has emerged within North Korea, demonstrating the regime's weakening control over digital information. Tech-savvy North Koreans are increasingly using sophisticated methods to circumvent government restrictions. Young North Koreans are developing new programs to disable government-mandated locks on mobile operating systems. The proliferation of Chinese cell phones near the border enables calls on Chinese networks, though carrying severe punishment risks. Even more telling, enforcement has become irregular, with bribes often allowing citizens to avoid punishment. The weakening of information control represents a significant challenge to whether North Korea will collapse under its current leadership. Despite the regime's efforts to maintain its narrative, including the introduction of the law on elimination of reactionary thought and culture in 2020, the flow of outside information continues to accelerate. This technological and cultural infiltration raises critical questions about the next North Korean leader's ability to maintain the traditional information blockade that has been crucial to regime survival. Fractures within North Korea's elite class have become increasingly visible, with unprecedented numbers abandoning their positions of privilege. Under the current North Korean leader's rule, elite defections have reached historic levels, with statistics showing that elite defectors now comprise 1.22% of total defections, a dramatic increase from 0.23% during his father's regime. The military's cohesion shows signs of strain as resource allocation becomes more challenging. Between 80,000 and 120,000 political prisoners are currently detained, many from military ranks, highlighting the regime's struggle to maintain loyalty through coercion. The government's response has intensified, with public executions becoming more frequent, including the forced attendance of 25,000 residents at recent executions. Party officials increasingly express their discontent through various channels, leading to stricter control measures. The regime has recently ordered reductions in official gatherings, acknowledging that these meetings have become venues for criticism. Key indicators of growing dissatisfaction include increased surveillance of official meetings, restrictions on social gatherings, enhanced monitoring of communication channels, and stricter enforcement of ideological compliance. The exodus of business elites has accelerated, with more than 20 high-ranking defectors leaving since last year. Most notably, these defections include diplomats and trade representatives stationed abroad, suggesting deepening cracks in the regime's international operations. The current North Korean leader attempts to maintain loyalty through a system of luxury rewards, including exclusive residential districts for top loyalists, but this strategy shows diminishing returns. The regime's traditional methods of maintaining elite loyalty through a mix of coercion and privilege are showing signs of strain. Recent reports indicate that between 80,000 and 200,000 individuals are currently held in political prison camps, many from the elite class, demonstrating the regime's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control. The situation has become so concerning that even diplomatic missions are affected, with multiple embassy closures last year due to financial pressures. These fractures within the elite structure raise serious questions about whether North Korea will collapse under its current leadership. The next North Korean leader may face an even more fragmented power base, as the traditional loyalty-based system shows signs of irreparable damage. Recent studies suggest that younger officials, particularly those exposed to outside information, are increasingly skeptical of the regime's long-term viability. Mounting evidence suggests a succession crisis is brewing in North Korea, as the current North Korean leader Kim Jong Un faces unprecedented challenges in preparing his heir. Recent intelligence reports indicate Kim's daughter, Kim Jong-un, has emerged as a potential successor, though her path to power faces significant obstacles. Family dynamics within North Korea's ruling elite are reportedly becoming increasingly fraught, with power struggles emerging among key members of Kim Jong Un's inner circle. These tensions are believed to stem from competing ambitions and shifting alliances within the family, as various figures seek to secure their influence in a regime that values loyalty but is rife with internal rivalries. Kim Yo-jong, Kim Jong-un's younger sister, plays a prominent role as vice director of the ruling Korean Workers' Party and has long been considered one of the most powerful figures in the regime. However, her growing influence has reportedly caused friction with Ri Sol-ju, Kim Jong-un's wife, who is said to be concerned about the extent of Kim Yo-jong's authority. Adding to this complex power dynamic is the public emergence of Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-un's young daughter, who has been referred to as his most beloved child, and is increasingly viewed as a potential successor. Recent developments suggest that the introduction of Kim Jong-un into the public spotlight may have sidelined Kim Yo-jong to some extent, leading to increased tension within the leadership circle. Reports detail an incident involving a confrontation with senior officials, including a dispute with Kim Ki-nam, the former director of the propaganda department. During this altercation, Kim Yo-jong was allegedly very angry, an episode that highlights the volatile nature of these internal power struggles. As the Kim family navigates these intricate dynamics, questions arise about the long-term stability of the regime. With Kim Yo-jong's apparent sidelining and the prominence of Kim Jong-un, the balance of power within the family appears to be shifting, potentially setting the stage for more significant conflicts in the future. These internal struggles could have profound implications for the regime's cohesion, as well as its ability to project unity in the face of mounting external and internal challenges. The military's resistance to female leadership presents perhaps the most significant obstacle. North Korea's deeply patriarchal culture, based on feudal Confucianism, poses substantial challenges for any female successor. Military leadership concerns center around. More than half of Kim Jong-un's public appearances have been related to military activities, suggesting efforts to build credibility with armed forces leadership. However, experts note that the military is the one entity that has to be brought on board more so than any other elements of the regime. The succession crisis raises critical questions about whether North Korea will collapse under the weight of these internal tensions. With Kim Jong-un reportedly facing health challenges, the urgency of establishing a clear succession plan has intensified. The next North Korean leader's identity remains uncertain, as both potential female successors face significant obstacles in a traditionally male-dominated power structure. Signs of public resistance against the current North Korean leader's authority have reached unprecedented levels, with dissent manifesting through various channels, despite severe repression. Recent reports indicate a significant shift in public attitudes and behaviors that challenge state control. The rise of private markets has significantly reshaped North Korea's social structure, with grassroots economic activity increasingly resisting state authority. Market participation has evolved into a widespread act of defiance. Women now dominate as market vendors, and 83% of respondents report that external goods and information have a greater influence on their lives than government decisions. Despite official restrictions, these markets provide essential income for families. Attempts by the regime to suppress them have largely failed, as citizens create intricate networks to bypass controls. Even government officials have come to depend on markets and bribes to supplement their inadequate official salaries. For the first time, protests have erupted in North Korean-operated facilities abroad. In January 2024, a major uprising occurred when workers at clothing factories in northeastern China revolted upon learning that their wages had been diverted to a war preparation fund. The protests, involving up to 2,500 workers across 15 factories, marked the largest known demonstration in North Korean history, with workers demanding years of unpaid wages. Inside North Korea, resistance takes subtler forms. The government has intensified punishments for anti-socialist behavior, imposing prison sentences of up to 15 years for consuming foreign media. Despite these harsh measures, banned activities persist, with increasing reports of citizens openly criticizing the North Korean leader and markets. The regime has responded with even stricter laws targeting South Korean-style speech and behavior. However, these measures appear to be losing their effectiveness as public dissatisfaction continues to grow. The international community's support for North Korea continues to erode, as traditional allies recalculate their strategic relationships with Pyongyang. This shift threatens to further isolate the regime and compound its internal challenges. Beijing's relationship with North Korea shows signs of strain, as many analysts now view North Korea as more of a liability than a valuable ally. China's economic support remains critical, accounting for 98% of North Korea's official total imports and exports in 2023. However, Beijing's commitment appears to be wavering, with debate intensifying among Chinese policymakers about the diminishing value of supporting the Kim regime. The relationship faces new pressures as North Korea deepens its ties with Russia. Chinese authorities have grown increasingly concerned about potential refugee flows, with unofficial estimates suggesting between 50,000 to 200,000 North Korean defectors currently residing in China. Moscow's engagement with North Korea has intensified, marked by significant military cooperation. Recent intelligence reports indicate approximately 11,000 North Korean soldiers were deployed to Russia's Kursk region. The partnership provides North Korea with estimated annual revenues between $320 million to $1.3 billion. A new comprehensive strategic partnership treaty signed in June 2024 includes mutual defense commitments, economic cooperation agreements, and military assistance provisions. International sanctions have severely affected North Korea's civilian population. The UN Security Council's effectiveness in maintaining sanctions has deteriorated, with 62 countries found violating UN measures. China and Russia's diplomatic support has paralyzed the Security Council, with both countries vetoing new sanctions proposals and calling for humanitarian exemptions. The humanitarian toll continues to mount as sanctions affect essential services. Medical facilities face critical shortages, with bans on metal items preventing the import of crucial equipment like sterilizers, ambulances, and X-ray machines. Food production has declined significantly as sanctions prohibit the import of agricultural equipment, fertilizers, and machinery. These developments raise serious questions about whether North Korea will collapse under mounting international pressure. The current North Korean leader faces unprecedented challenges as traditional support structures weaken. China's strategic recalculation and Russia's limited partnership may not provide sufficient backing to sustain the regime, potentially accelerating the path toward the next North Korean leader. Military capabilities in North Korea show alarming signs of deterioration, with evidence pointing to widespread equipment failures and troop readiness issues. Recent assessments reveal a military force struggling to maintain basic operational standards, despite the current North Korean leader's emphasis on military prowess. The North Korean military is grappling with significant challenges stemming from outdated and aging equipment. Its conventional forces rely on systems that are no longer viable for modern combat. Main battle tanks date back to the 1960s and 1970s, night vision technology lags by 2 decades, and weapon systems are prone to frequent malfunctions. Additionally, the aging missile stockpiles demand extensive maintenance. The regime's prioritization of nuclear weapons development has exacerbated the decline of conventional forces. Tank units are particularly disadvantaged, with the Chama-Ho series described as not competitive with frontline US and South Korean tanks. The production of new conventional military equipment has slowed considerably, as resources and facilities are redirected toward missile programs. Soldier morale has also reached alarming lows, driven by severe food shortages and malnutrition. Reports indicate that troops deployed in combat zones, such as those alongside Russian forces in Ukraine, face critical food shortages, with many succumbing to malnutrition within 5 months. Conditions within North Korea are similarly dire. Soldiers typically lose an average of 10 kilograms during their first month of service, and entire battalions often require hospitalization for malnutrition. Training centers struggle to provide even basic nutrition, further straining troop readiness. These hardships have led to a rise in desertion, including an incident where 18 soldiers fled near the Ukrainian border. Resource shortages compound the military's difficulties, undermining basic operations and training. Severe logistical issues have reduced combat readiness, with troops facing chronic shortages of food, fuel, and ammunition. Military exercises frequently exhaust essential supplies within 3 to 7 days. Maintenance efforts are equally hampered, as the lack of spare parts hinders the upkeep of critical equipment. The impact extends to training capabilities, with exercises frequently suspended or scaled back due to fuel shortages. Even elite units struggle with basic equipment maintenance, as industrial capital stock is nearly beyond repair as a result of years of underinvestment. These military readiness issues raise serious questions about whether North Korea will collapse under mounting internal pressures. The current North Korean leader's focus on nuclear weapons has come at the expense of conventional forces, creating significant vulnerabilities. Military analysts note that in every war game that I've ever been part of, the North Koreans run out of water, food, and ammo, suggesting fundamental weaknesses in sustaining military operations. the situation has deteriorated to the point where even basic military functions are compromised. Training exercises have been reduced, with many units operating at minimal readiness levels. The regime's ability to maintain military readiness faces unprecedented challenges, as industrial outputs have stagnated for years at a fraction of pre-1990 levels. Analysts examining the survival prospects of the North Korean regime identify multiple converging factors that suggest an accelerating timeline toward potential state failure. The complex interplay of internal pressures and external challenges presents an unprecedented threat to the regime's longevity. North Korea faces several critical tipping points that could lead to rapid destabilization. Intelligence assessments reveal that the country's economic system has reached a breaking point, with industrial output stagnating at a fraction of pre-1990 levels. A convergence of crises has created a precarious situation. Food production dropped by 4% to 4.51 million tons in 2022, and rice shipments from China plummeted from 500,000 tons to just over 130,000 tons. More than 80% of the population lacks sufficient protein intake, and approximately 45.5% of North Koreans suffer from undernourishment conditions that historically signal potential state collapse. The regime's efforts to tighten control through increased repression have ironically hastened the erosion of its authority. Security analysts have outlined 3 potential collapse scenarios, each with varying degrees of regional impact. The first involves a military coup that removes the Kim family regime but preserves the state structure, causing minimal disruption but requiring cohesive military leadership. The second envisions a failed coup attempt leading to a protracted power struggle, which could spark a humanitarian crisis with an estimated 300,000 refugees fleeing to China. The third and most severe scenario is the complete dissolution of the state following prolonged internal conflict, necessitating an international stabilization force of 260,000 to 400,000 troops. In anticipation of such outcomes, major powers have devised contingency plans, though coordination remains a challenge. The United States and South Korea prioritize securing North Korea's nuclear arsenal, which includes 8 to 10 weapons stored at undisclosed locations. Immediate objectives include safeguarding nuclear materials, providing humanitarian assistance, controlling borders, and disarming conventional forces. China's plans focus on mitigating refugee flows and maintaining a buffer state. Beijing has prepared to manage 300,000 refugees and has outlined conditions for intervention, including large-scale migrations, nuclear insecurity, and the onset of civil war threatening regional stability. The complexity of international response coordination is compounded by competing strategic interests. The United States must coordinate carefully with South Korea and China to develop a basic concept of operations while managing the risk of miscalculation that could lead to confrontation between major powers. Recent war games suggest that North Korean forces would exhaust essential supplies within 3 to 7 days of conflict, indicating that any collapse scenario could unfold rapidly. This timeline creates urgency for international coordination, as the notion that somehow we could defer to a single ally of relatively modest means in stabilizing a country holding 8 to 10 nuclear weapons at unknown locations within its territory is illusory and irresponsible. The current North Korean leader faces mounting pressure as these scenarios become more plausible. Intelligence assessments indicate that the next North Korean leader may emerge through crisis, rather than a planned succession, as regime collapse in North Korea is inevitable. However, the timing remains uncertain, with analysts warning that while contingency planning for a potentially catastrophic collapse should continue, future North Korea policy should not hinge on the notion that such a collapse is imminent, inevitable, or even probable. The question of will North Korea collapse has shifted from theoretical possibility to strategic planning necessity. The regime's survival timeframe depends largely on its ability to manage multiple simultaneous crises while maintaining elite cohesion and preventing mass unrest. Current indicators suggest that the traditional tools of state control are becoming less effective, even as the challenges to regime stability multiply. North Korea stands at a pivotal moment, with mounting evidence of unprecedented vulnerability in the Kim regime. Systemic failures in the economy, society, and military are converging to threaten state stability. Food shortages, energy infrastructure collapse, and eroding elite loyalty are compounding pressures, while the military struggles with outdated equipment and malnourished troops. Information control is weakening, and traditional allies are distancing themselves, leaving the regime increasingly isolated. Kim Jong Un's succession plans further highlight internal instability, with challenges to his daughter's elevation and intensifying family power struggles. As public dissent grows and market activities continue to bypass state control, the regime faces its gravest survival challenge yet. What do you think the future holds for the country? Is speculation about North Korea's collapse just dirty media about the country? Or is the country truly on the brink of collapse? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next videos.